Greetings, my scattered brothers and sisters in the Lord. Trust you know the Lord is with you wherever you find yourself scattered today, and that you know that His presence with you is more than enough for whatever you might face today. We are still reflecting on the fishing trip of Peter and some of the disciples after Jesus' resurrection. And Peter had said that he was going to go fishing. A number of the disciples said they would go with him, including the beloved disciple, presumably John. And they catch nothing. They fish all night, they catch nothing. Jesus is on the shore, and it's early morning now, and Jesus hollers out to them, "Children, haven't you caught anything?" And they answer, "No." And then Jesus tells them to cast their nets on the right hand side of the boat, and they do. And now they have this tremendous catch of fish. And so they start making their way to shore, trying to haul it in. And the beloved disciple tells Peter, "It is the Lord." When Peter hears this, he jumps into the water and starts to swim ashore. The rest of the crew, they're trying to get the boat in and get the catch of fish in. They finally land the boat, and Peter goes back out and helps them bring the net ashore with all the fish in it. Jesus had said, "Bring some of the fish to me." And then they have breakfast with Jesus. Jesus had already had fish there on a charcoal fire, and he serves them fish and bread for breakfast. And this is the third time that Jesus appeared to them. The risen Jesus has appeared to them. So we talked a little bit about, making sure that in the fishing we listen to Jesus, and that Jesus needs to direct our fishing. We don't just depend upon our own technology, our own marketing skills, etc. What I want to focus on today, as we continue to reflect on this, is that Jesus had the disciples bring some of the fish they caught to him. And then the second thing is that the net was big enough to handle all 153 fish, and they were large fish. I think sometimes when we catch fish in ministry, we tend to think of them as ours. And yet here is Jesus saying, bring them to me. And that's something that we need to keep in mind, that Jesus calls us to be fishers of men. We do the fishing. We see people come to Christ. And sometimes we tend to hold on to them like they're ours, like they belong to us. And no, they belong to Jesus. And so very important that we work at realizing that we don't own the fish, that they belong to Jesus. They are to be in service to Jesus rather than in service to us. So just kind of a small thing, but I think significant. The other is that the net did not break. 153 large fish, that's a big catch. The net did not break. And sometimes I think we have a tendency to think about the net maybe as the church. And so that no matter what the catch is, the church is big enough to handle the catch, and that the church should never break or split. And in a certain sense, that's pretty ironic, because if we go to First John, we see that a group went out from the church, and John says they went out because they never belonged to us. And so because there's a church split in First John, kind of makes me think maybe the net's not the church. Maybe more, the net is actually better understood to be the gospel, that's really what we cast, is the gospel. And so in terms of casting the gospel, whatever the catch, no matter how big the catch, the gospel is strong enough, the gospel is powerful enough to bring about salvation, to bring about the transformation of someone who's lost in sin to becoming a child of God that reflects the very character of God, the very heart of God. It's kind of like what Paul said, "I'm not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God unto salvation for all who believe." And so I think we see that kind of symbolically in the net, that the disciples cast the net, they throw out the gospel, and they bring in a catch of 153 large fish. It would seem that maybe this is too much for the gospel. but the gospel doesn't break. The gospel is the power of God unto salvation for all who believe. So that's the word for today, is to, sow the gospel, and there's going to be a catch. Remember that the catch actually belongs to Jesus. Bring me some of the fish you just caught. And to realize that the gospel is big enough, the gospel is powerful enough to bring about the salvation of all who believe. Maybe going back in John 3:16, for God so loved the world that whosoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. I probably better say, for God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. God bless. Have a great day. Throw out the net of the gospel, see what the catch is, and bring it to Jesus, and realize that the gospel is powerful to save.